Have you ever felt like you just needed a nap? I'm not talking about on a Sunday afternoon as part of your weekly liturgy. I'm talking about on a Tuesday morning when you get out of bed. Have you ever been dealing with so much stuff that even sleep isn't restful? Yeah, I feel you. This is a trying time in my life. We all have them, right? We have seasons of peace and seasons where everything feels like a battle. I'm in a stormy season right now, and I'm not telling you this because I need your pity or compassion. I'm telling you this because, if I'm being honest, I need a nap. My spiritual father used to say, sometimes the most spiritual thing that you can do is go to sleep. That man was amazing in so many ways. One of my favorite pictures I have of him was taken by my wife. He and his wife are sitting on a bench, and he's sitting upright with his head dropped down, chin to chest. My man is asleep, and his beautiful wife is simply sitting on the opposite side of the bench, content. He could fall asleep anywhere. He's a very spiritual man indeed. My dad was like this too. I remember getting up early in the morning one morning and getting on a small airplane with my dad and his friend Ed Petty to fly to Oshkosh, Wisconsin for an airplane convention. After we landed and set up our tent under the wing of the airplane, we walked around for a little bit. That is until Ed and my dad found a tree providing nice enough shade and sat down and leaned up against the trunk. In a matter of moments, I began to hear a sound that I am entirely too familiar with. The sound of a soft palate massaging the back of a throat as a truly violent snore began to ring out. They slept for what seemed like an eternity. I was just there by myself with nothing to do. It was the early 90s and I wasn't even a teenager yet. I guess my point is that I'm just lucky to be alive. But a bigger point is that rest is hard to come by, and I admire those who can just fall asleep. I strive to be that kind of person, and I think my wife would say that I usually meet my goal, but not right now. The storms of life are just too noisy right now. Have you ever been there? It was just a couple of nights ago that I sat down with the kids to read a Bible/bedtime story. It was a story found in 3 of the Gospels. See, Jesus was teaching a large group of people, and they wanted to hear what it was that he was saying, so they kept coming in closer and closer. Jesus and his disciples got in a boat and pushed offshore a little bit. This was before there were microphones and speakers or podcasts, so the best PA around was the natural reflection of sound off of water. So Jesus pushed away a little so that he could be heard. He taught him parables that day, mostly about seeds, but a little bit about light. And at the end of the day, he said to the fellas, "Let's go to the other side." And as the crew set off, he went over and put his head on a pillow, and he took a nap. Talk about wisdom upon wisdom. After a day of pouring himself out, he knew that he needed to be disconnected from it all and rest. It was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be a nice nap. But something else happened. Out of nowhere, a storm popped up and began to rock the ship. Now, this should not have been a terribly big deal for this group of experienced sailors. Some of these guys were professional fishermen even. This was not the first storm that they had been in, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But this one was scary. And it didn't matter how hard they worked. They couldn't control their ship. The storm was just too big. Have you ever been in a storm that you honestly didn't know if you were going to make it out of? Have you ever tried all you could and used every trick you had ever learned to get yourself either out of or past the situation? Have you ever felt so scared that you thought that you would lose it all? Have you ever wondered why God had abandoned you in that moment? Don't worry, you're not alone. Even Jesus' disciples, the ones who knew him the best, thought that they were going to die. And maybe even worse, they thought that Jesus didn't care about them. How could a loving God ignore me in my time of greatest need? Is he aware of our struggle? Is he aware of our pain? Is he aware of this present danger? Or does he just not care? That's exactly what they asked him. Do you not care that we are perishing? Did you catch it? Isn't that an interesting question? They didn't ask, do you not care that you are perishing? They don't question Jesus about his condition. They're too focused on their own. In their fear, they invented a separation between themselves and Jesus. I once slept through an earthquake in Los Angeles. I woke up to find my entire family huddled under doorways in the living room. I had completely missed this earth-shaking event. I have historically been a very heavy sleeper, yet after I had my first child, something uncanny happened. My wife and I got super hearing in our sleep. All of a sudden, even if we were in deep dreamland, we could hear every time our child would even whimper, and it would shake us out of bed and send us running to their cribs to make sure that everything was okay. All of a sudden, my child's cry was an earth-shaking event. Jesus heard the cries and allegations of his disciples, and, well, I'd like to read the rest of this story from my kids' Jesus Storybook Bible. It says, Jesus stood up and spoke to the storm. "Hush," he said. That's all. And the strangest thing happened. The wind and the waves recognized Jesus' voice. They had heard it before, of course. It was the same voice that made them in the very beginning. They listened to Jesus and they did what he said. Immediately the wind stopped. The water calmed down. It glittered innocently in the moonlight and lapped quietly against the side of the boat as if nothing had happened. The little boat bobbed gently up and down. There was a deep stillness and a great quiet all around. Then Jesus turned to his wind-torn friends. "Why are you scared?" he said. "Did you forget who I am? Did you believe your fears instead of me?" As I read that story to my kids at bedtime, I prayed that they would get a good night's sleep. I prayed that they would have the peace of Jesus and not the fear of men. I prayed that I would have enough faith to rest. I think if we're being honest, it's hard to trust God in the storm. When we're in the cold darkness of our lives, sometimes it's difficult to even remember what the warm sun feels like on our face. And the stress of uncertainty in the night can rob us of our joy, our peace, our happiness, and our rest. The irony is this: sometimes it is the most challenging to rest during the darkness, and that is exactly when we should. We think that if we're in a dark season, we need to work our way out of it, but it's the time designed for us to rest. It's counterintuitive to rest during the storm, but Jesus said that when we focus on the storms, that's when we lose faith. We fail to see the importance of resting. We forget that Jesus rested. We forget that the Creator rested. Really, we don't Sabbath well. And when you don't Sabbath, it's easy to think that rest will never come, and it's easy to lose faith. But there's hope for us in the darkness, and there's a reason to rest. It's found all the way at the beginning of the book. Genesis 1:5 says, "God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day." The order of these words is very important. The evening and the morning were the first day. Notice that the evening comes first. The day starts at night. This is not new information to our Jewish brothers. They know that the new day starts at sundown. Even as I record this, it's about an hour past sundown on Yom Kippur. Their day is already started. Isn't that beautiful? We think of darkness as a time when God has made himself far from us. We invent separation by focusing on our condition rather than focusing on his. Nighttime is not a sign that nothing is happening. It's the first sign of a new day. And it's not the time to freak out and accuse Jesus of not caring about us. It's the time to lay down next to Jesus and rest. I know you're tired. I know you've been fighting all day. I know you feel the weight of tomorrow. But in this present darkness, rest, Sabbath, take a nap. He is beginning something new in you.